Padre Pio often said that death is not measured by the years a person lives, but by how ready their soul is. Some people leave quietly after long, full lives. Others are taken suddenly, without warning, leaving behind grief, unanswered questions, and the sense that their story ended before it could be finished. But Padre Pio always insisted that nothing is ever unfinished in God's eyes. One vision that affected him deeply involved a young man whose life ended far sooner than anyone could have imagined. It happened one late afternoon when the monastery was calm and the sunlight was fading through the halls. Padre Pio was praying near the crucifix, lost in deep meditation, when his face suddenly changed. He looked toward the empty space beside the altar as though someone had just appeared. The friars nearby noticed him pause, his posture shifting. He became still attentive, almost like a father seeing a frightened child. He later described what he witnessed. The young man's soul was confused and trembling, standing beside the sudden reality of his own death. The young man had died unexpectedly, violently, abruptly, without any chance to prepare or even understand what was happening. One moment he was alive, full of dreams and plans. The next he was torn from his body, standing in a silence that felt foreign. Padre Pio said the first emotion on the young man's face was not fear of judgment, but shock. The shock of realizing life had ended without warning. He gazed at his own body. Padre Pio explained as if he wanted to step back into it. Few people imagine this, but Padre Pio described it many times. When someone dies suddenly, the soul often lingers near the body for a brief moment, struggling to understand the separation. It tries to speak, to breathe, to move, but nothing responds. The soul realizes the truth before the mind does, and the mind instinctively reaches for what it has lost. In this case, the young man stood caught between two worlds, the one he had known and the eternity he had never expected. Padre Pio saw him reaching instinctively toward the familiar, toward the life he loved, the people he had left behind, the future that vanished in an instant. He described the scene with heart-wrenching clarity. It was like watching someone knock on the door of a house that no longer exists. Yet in that moment of confusion, something else appeared, his guardian angel. Padre Pio saw the angel standing beside the young man, radiant and patient, like someone ready to take a trembling child by the hand. If the angel didn't speak at first, he didn't pull or push, he simply radiated calm, offering peace. The angel, Padre Pio said, is the first comfort, because sudden death is like being woken from a dream you weren't ready to leave. The young man looked at the angel with disbelief. Padre Pio said his expression softened, not from understanding, but from recognition. The soul remembers what the mind forgets. It remembers the presence that has been with it since childhood, the quiet voice that gave both warnings and comfort, the invisible companion who never left. Padre Pio described this as a memory awakening within the soul. Even with the angel beside him, the young man hesitated. He looked back at the earth, at the path he thought he would walk, at the people he loved. He reached out toward the world as if he could still change it, fix it, or finish what he had started. Padre Pio said many sudden deaths carry this same longing, not for life itself, but for the unfinished love left behind. The young suffer most at that moment because their hearts are still overflowing with desires. Padre Pio saw that longing clearly. He saw the young man thinking of his mother, who would soon learn the tragic news. He saw him thinking of choices he never made, forgiveness he never offered, joy he never shared. The weight of all that unexpressed love pressed down on him like a question that had no answer. Then came the moment of truth. Padre Pio said that when a soul dies suddenly, the first revelation is not punishment or reward, it is light. A light so pure, so gentle, it feels like being truly seen for the first time. This light appeared behind the angel, soft and warm like a sunrise rather than harsh like fire. It reached toward the young man gently, invitingly, without fear or force. Padre Pio said, when the light comes, the soul knows two things immediately, that it is loved and that nothing can ever remain hidden again. The young man trembled, not from fear but from awe. He suddenly understood that he was fully known, every joy, every wound, every mistake, every act of goodness. Padre Pio explained this: often the soul is not judged by surprise, it is embraced by truth. But truth can overwhelm a soul that expected more time. The young man bowed his head as if ashamed to arrive in eternity unprepared. He whispered, not with lips, but with the essence of his being, "I am not ready." It was the cry of someone who felt incomplete. Then the most beautiful moment came. The angel stepped forward, touched the young man gently, and whispered something Padre Pio could sense but not hear. What he understood was this: the angel reminded him that readiness does not come from years lived, but from the soul's desire for God. Padre Pio said the young man's sorrow softened. His resistance weakened. His longing for earth began to fade, slowly replaced by a longing for the light. Yet even then, the young man glanced back one more time, not out of rebellion, but out of love. He wanted to say goodbye. He wanted to comfort those who would mourn him. He wanted to complete what he had started. But the angel revealed a great consolation. He saw that his loved ones would be wrapped in grace. He saw that his prayers, now freed from time, would protect them. He realized that death did not end his love for them. It magnified it. The young man understood that from heaven he could care for them more fully than he ever could on earth. At that moment, Padre Pio said the struggle disappeared. He saw the young man gaze into the light with a mix of fear and hope, and then take a step forward, a small, trembling step yet full of determination. The instant he did, the entire room was filled with a presence so profound that Padre Pio himself fell to his knees. He was not taken too soon, Padre Pio said. He was taken at exactly the right moment for his soul. In God's timing, nothing comes too early, nothing comes too late, nothing is wasted. And love, even the incomplete kind, carries on in eternity. Padre Pio explained that when the young man entered the light, everything around him shifted. The fear that had held him just seconds before melted away instantly. Not because he suddenly understood everything, but because he realized he didn't need to. He had entered a presence that already understood him. The light did not question him. It did not judge. It did not overwhelm. Instead, it embraced him gently, like warm air after a cold night. Padre Pio described it as the soul being gently unwrapped. All the tension of dying suddenly, the shock, the confusion, the grief, unraveled like a tightly wound thread loosening slowly. He said this is what happens to every soul taken too soon. They arrive carrying questions, regrets, unfinished dreams. But the first embrace of God reassures them. You are safe now. Nothing is lost. This is the part of death the living never see, the part that softens the terror of sudden loss. While the body lies still, the soul is being welcomed. Padre Pio witnessed the young man's guardian angel walking beside him into the light, never leaving his side for even a moment. He always emphasized this. The guardian angel stays with the soul until it stands before God. Within the light, the young man's memories unfolded, not chaotically, but with clarity. He saw kindnesses he didn't even remember offering. He noticed moments when he chose good without realizing it. He recalled resisting temptation, offering sincere apologies, forgiving quietly, helping others invisibly. Every one of these moments shone like stars in his life, brighter than any sin, brighter than any failure. Padre Pio said, God shows the soul everything, not to shame it, but to reveal how much love was already present inside it. The young man also saw his wounds, moments of anger, selfishness, mistakes, and immaturity. But he saw them through mercy, not as accusations, but as spaces where God wanted to bring healing. He wept, Padre Pio said, not out of fear, but from the beauty of seeing his life honestly. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of death. People imagine judgment as a courtroom, but Padre Pio described it as a meeting of profound truth and deep tenderness. The young man realized something that surprised him. God was not disappointed in his brief life. God was not angry that he wasn't ready. God saw the desire to love that he had never fully expressed and counted that desire as righteousness. Padre Pio said the young man looked around, expecting punishment, distance, or rejection, but none came. Instead, the light grew warmer. The soul discovered, Padre Pio said, that God was waiting. The angel then led the young man through what Padre Pio called the first purification. This is not fire or pain. It is the soul releasing the attachments it carried, the fears, misunderstandings, and wounds. Padre Pio said it was like a veil being lifted. When the young die, their regrets feel heavy because they believe they failed time, but God heals that sorrow first. The young man saw that the love he left on earth continued through those who mourned him. He understood that his death would become a source of grace for his family, not because God took him, but because God transforms suffering into redemption when offered to him. Padre Pio explained that in heaven, every unfinished love is completed. God finishes what the soul could not. That truth alone heals the shock of sudden death. Yet something even more extraordinary unfolded. As the young man approached the fullness of the light, he saw prayers being offered for him on earth, not as words or sounds, but as movements of grace. He saw candles lit, tears shed in silence, a mother pressing a rosary to her forehead, his name whispered in sorrow. Each prayer reached him like warm waves, wrapping him in love that crossed the boundary of time and eternity. Padre Pio said, the prayers of the living become the breath of the dead. For someone taken too soon, that breath is everything. The young man felt strengthened by those prayers, not because God needed them, but because he did. Prayer helped him trust, helped him rise, helped him surrender fully without fear. Padre Pio said, this is why sudden deaths feel unbearably painful for those left behind. The pain is the soul's longing touching yours. But prayer transforms that longing into consolation for both the living and the dead. Eventually, the young man stood in what Padre Pio called the true dawn of eternity. No fear, no shock, no regret remained, only recognition. He recognized God, he recognized love. He recognized his purpose not as a collection of years, but as a single shining truth. He had belonged to God from the beginning, and nothing in his brief life changed that. Padre Pio said the young man's final gesture was pure gratitude, so profound that it became joy. The soul rejoices, he said, because it sees the mercy that followed it every day of its life. This is what Padre Pio wanted people to understand. No one dies too soon in God's eyes. What seems incomplete on earth is completed in heaven. What seems unfair becomes revelation. What seems tragic becomes transformation, and what feels like loss becomes union. Padre Pio once said, "Do not fear for the young. Their longing becomes their ladder. Their desire to live does not condemn them. It becomes the very force that lifts them to God. The love they carried, the dreams they held, the hopes they never fulfilled, all of it becomes material for grace." The young man, once trembling and confused, now entered the fullness of eternity with trust, guided by the angel who never left him, embraced by the God who understood everything. Padre Pio watched the final moment, the soul vanishing into the light like a breath carried by the wind, and he felt peace wash over him. It was not an ending, he said, but a beginning, the beginning he had always been meant to have. And so the soul of the young man, taken too soon, entered God's presence at the perfect moment, into the perfect love of the one who makes all things whole,